I always go back to the whole seasonal thing, but just making sure that you spread that money throughout the year so that you're not feeling like it's a feast or famine. You get a bunch of money and you're like, yes, I'm rich. I'll buy some new cameras this time. And then winter comes and you're like, I'm poor. I guess I'm eating craft dinner for a whole month.
If you're a new business owner, or maybe you're somebody who's been around for a little while but is a little bit nervous when it comes to tax time, today we're going to be sharing some of our tips and tricks to help you make this process a little bit easier. And we have been doing this since 2015, so we have a lot of experience of what works and what doesn't. And we just finished doing pretty much all of our taxes for the year. And we just have a couple of tips that we wanted to share because I think that it would be helpful for others who have a business, whether it's a wedding business or just doing your own taxes. And I think it's just little things that hopefully will make this process easier for you.
It's not even about doing taxes, but just staying on top of your finances and knowing where you spend money, because that can quickly get out of hand, especially if you use credit cards or you are in a business like ours where we get a lot of money during the wedding season. And then we have the off season where we have to take control of our finances and rein it in, make sure that we're not spending above what we make, which as any business owner does in the first couple of years, reinvest in your business and try to grow that way. And it can cost money and it can be risky because you never really know what the next year is going to be like, especially in 2020 and then the following years. Things can just happen that can break your business, that can really affect it. So you really have to have a backup plan. You have to be smart on your spending, on your saving, and keep an eye on all those things.
I think as an entrepreneur and as an artist, we just get really excited about things, right? And we just see like, okay, I know in our case, it's like, oh, this new and fancy camera is going to make such a big difference. So I'm going to get like the newest, best thing. And it's just going to make everything so much easier. But the thing is it's so important, I think, to really now looking back to have like a good budget to figure out, okay, well, can I really afford this new flashy thing? And will it really have so much of an impact that will make everything so much better? Or can we make do with what we have? And I think that is really what I want to touch on this, because for the longest time, I think also through raising kids and things like that, it's just been a whirlwind when it comes to taxes and when it comes to budgeting and just kind of, figure all that out. And then throw in things like you said, like a pandemic, or throw in engagement gap or a slow season, and all of that can kind of come crashing down on people. And don't get me wrong, we've definitely had those conversations like, are we going to get a job? Are we going to have to get a second job? I think what we've learned through this is that it's so important for us to sort of take a high level look at our budget more often, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at, okay, how many expenses did we have coming in? And how much profit do we actually have at the end of the day once we, pay the taxes and pay ourselves and then pay for all of the people that we have. So one of the things that we started doing is really getting into the numbers. And if you're not a numbers person, I get you. I am not a numbers person. Like you can test to that I am not a numbers girl.
Yeah, math is not your strongest suit.
It is not. But I can do some simple adding and subtracting.
Mm-hmm. 1 + 1 is 2.
The idea is that you can make this really, really simply. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money as well. And some of the tools that we use QuickBooks. QuickBooks is really simple. It's all done online. So Luke and I can both be in QuickBooks at the same time and be entering things. And it's just so nice because it's all there. It can connect to your bank accounts and
connect
to your phone, and that, like, we track our mileage through there. This is not sponsored, by the way, but we do use QuickBooks, and we really do find that it's really helpful to kind of capture all of the things that happen in our business and gives us a very high level overview of where we're spending and where we're going in terms of income as well.
Not only using QuickBooks as a tool, but I would say one of the biggest tips that I can give is that you have to spend more time or more frequently look at the numbers. And that's something that we didn't do last year because we've always hired a bookkeeper. Well, not always. When we were capable and didn't want to deal with the finances, we've had a bookkeeper pretty much for years and years. We had a bookkeeper, and this year we decided that was one of the expenses we were cutting because we weren't getting as much business as we thought. at the time. And so we ran into the problem where we didn't continuously enter our things in as the year went on. And especially when we get super busy in wedding season, the receipts and the expenses and the income like pile up. Do it as it comes. Get to the end of the year and be like, wow, I did it all throughout the year and I don't have this giant pile that could give you some of that anxiety paralysis of looking at it, especially like you said, if you're not a math person or you're not very good with technology. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on is like try to automate as much as possible. Even if you have to take a course or some kind of like go through YouTube. I'm a visual learner, so it helps me a lot to look at other people do it before I can do it and just set up these little things that will make your life easy in the end.
Yeah. And what we ended up doing, because we're pretty smart, we have a good idea of how
I like
things
to think
are.
we're pretty smart.
And we can learn things. I mean, we taught ourselves how to run this business ourselves. So to me, entering some stuff into a program is pretty straightforward. And the nice thing about it connecting to our bank accounts and things like that is it's all really like there already. It's just a matter of us going in and confirming everything. That's really like the part that takes the longest. And for years, even though we had a bookkeeper, we were still pretty good at saving like, invoices that we had. But I feel like now that we're kind of looking at it in a more like big picture scenario, when it comes to like your finances and your budgeting and your taxes, like that can be a huge stressor for people. But I found through this process of us doing it ourselves, it's actually made that a lot less stressful for me because now I can see, okay, we've actually are profiting, like right now. We're not actually as bad as we thought we were. And I wouldn't have known that in any of the other previous years until tax time, right? When they're like, okay, this is how much you owe. And you're like, oh, okay, cool.
And I like to leverage it as, oh, we're going to pay a lot of taxes because we're profiting so much. Well, better buy some more gear and expense it. That's also a good advantage of knowing your numbers is that if you do need to spend some money to bring you down a tax bracket, you can upgrade some stuff. Maybe if you're starting to profit, you can reinvest in your business and that helps you. It's kind of a win-win situation. But another thing that I wanted to touch on about QuickBooks and connecting to bank accounts is having a business bank account that's separate than your personal.
Yeah, we do.
I understand that we do, but they may not have a business bank account or find that it's an important must-have.
Yeah, or a business credit card too. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. We have a business credit card. We could go on and on.
Why are those important, Bethany?
Because it just connects and it's all there and it's all business related. So it's just very simple. You're not trying to like sort through, okay, well, this is a personal transaction and this is a business transactions, right?
And that just saves time, right? And that's the thing is a business account there are some fees obviously with credit cards and accounts and things like that. But even if you look at it as costing a couple $100, how much time did that save you inputting all that information manually or having to click an extra 500 times every month because you have to separate all your personal expenses from your business expense.
I definitely recommend trying this. One of the things we've also done for our personal side, so this isn't, business related, but we also started really tracking what we're spending on our personal side as well. So not only have we done a deep dive into our business and how much we're spending there and what our expenses are, we've also looked at our personal side and ways that we can save money. And I think that those kind of go hand in hand, right? Because we wanted to plan a trip next year. At least this way we could go, okay, well, we have this much profit coming in, so maybe we should book another wedding or two if we wanted to go on a trip. Like we can actually have those conversations because we know, okay, well, this wedding, I'm going to make this much once I pay my second shooters and once I pay the taxes and everything. This is how much money I actually get. And then you can go, okay, I need to book 4 more weddings to be able to afford this trip, right? And it's just being able to have that knowledge and that power is so freeing. It's so freeing. And I wish they taught this in school more. That's kind of the conversation I've had with you time and time again.
Not even just taxes, but like personal finance.
Yeah.
And just how to deal with that.
Because we're not taught this in school. We're really not. Like I can find, the X or whatever, solve X or whatever. I don't even remember anymore. Algebra.
Oh, you're talking about math. Oh, sorry. I thought you were looking at a treasure map or something.
Thanks. This is what I deal with all the time. Always making fun of me and my math skills. I get logical things. Like a logical thing that makes sense to me, I can get and I can master. And right now, what that means is like I can understand QuickBooks and I can understand making our own personal budget thing. And I'm not using a tool. I'm not paying for that. I'm just doing like a Google budget like sheet,
it's a spreadsheet.
a spreadsheet for free. And I love it. It just gives me a very clear visual on what we're spending and just makes us have like that conversation, right? There's more trauma that comes from being in a financial position, I think, where you feel like you're out of control, right? Like within like our own marriage, it can also feel like we're both out of control. If we're both spending on whatever, we can kind of feel like it's not fair. And so it's a really good thing for us to be doing this exercise and just really taking a deep look into our finances so that this way we can keep each other accountable. And it just avoids any kind of disappointments, right?
And I've mentioned this before, but we're lucky that we're both in it and we share that vision and goals and we understand the business part of it. But when you're a business owner married or with a person that has a job and you have to convince this person, I feel like you have to show them that you know what you're doing. And like this year, this is my projected numbers. This is how I can contribute to our household income. There's a lot of different ways, like, because there'll be like, oh, I'm on a salary. Like every week I bring home this much and it doesn't change. But especially our job is very seasonal, and I've mentioned this before, but we could get huge influxes of money all summer long and then droughts in the winter. Or people can book us in the winter, pay us like lump sums, and then lump sums later. So it's really important to know how much you're profiting based on how much people are paying you and then the expenses that are going to be incurred shooting that wedding. Yeah. It's not just like, oh, well, and then also the amount of HST that you're going to, well, HST because we're in Ontario, but whatever taxes you're going to charge, you need to have a separate account or be able to segregate how much taxes you're going to pay at the end of the year or pay throughout the year, whatever it is that you decide to do. But you need to have an idea of what that number is going to be after the dust settles.
Exactly, right? It's like, is it going to be a $10,000 bill? Is it going to be a $50,000 bill?
It can vary a lot.
Those things are really important, right? We're not professional accountants or bookkeepers by any means at all. We were lucky that our accountant has a bookkeeper who was able to spend like 2 1-hour sessions with us to kind of show us the ins and outs of how QuickBooks works. And then we just recorded that and then followed the steps that she gave us and have been successful with doing that. It did take us a full, I would say like 6 to 8 hours, the two of us, to do a full year's worth of taxes, which felt like a long time. I definitely could not do that like all day, every day. That's definitely not like kudos to people who do that, but I couldn't. But it was, again, very eye-opening to be able to see the numbers and see where we're at and like see that we're doing quite well. And that's really what this was all about, is that take the time to enter it as you go, because I think that it's going to help you feel better financially about any decision that you need to make. If you do need to have new gear this year or your camera breaks, like, do you even have enough money to pay for a new camera if you needed to, right? Do you have enough money coming in to pay for your mortgage or pay for all the bills that you have to pay? Like, all of those are really important to know and have ready at any sort of given notice, right? So those are some of the things that I found really helpful through this process.
And then even like month over month, how much did I make this month versus last month? What did I do differently? How many inquiries did I get? Did I, spend on advertising? Did I, like, just knowing where your money's going and are you getting value out of it? I always go back to the whole seasonal thing, but just making sure that you spread that money throughout the year so that you're not feeling like it's a feast or famine. You get a bunch of money and you're like, yes, I'm rich. I'll buy some new cameras this time. And then winter comes and you're like, I'm poor. I guess I'm eating craft dinner for a whole month. Yeah.
Well, I think the part of the thing too is that we realize we also have a lot of expenses that come out. Like our website just came out, our online sharing gallery for photos for the year subscription just came out. And like, these are like sometimes $1,000 at a time, right? So like that one, Dropbox was $1,400. And then, there was like a whole bunch of different other things that came out. You have a lot of expenses that come out in February and January, right? Or like at the off season of time. And it's hard to sort of really understand how much all of that kind of trickles down, right? So I find it's really important for us anyways to be able to just really have a good idea of where we're going. And I really encourage everybody to start doing that. And if you have any questions about how things work, we're happy to answer them, or maybe even do like short little clips or videos on like how we do things. Obviously, like I said, we're not tax professionals, so you can always reach out and confirm with your tax person. But the way that we've done it and that we've found success is just by, reaching out to our professional and getting help from them. And then, just going that route. We were paying over $4,000, I would say, for bookkeeping last year. And we were able to save that by just taking like a full day doing it, the two of us ourselves. Now, it's not for everybody. If you can afford it and you want to pay someone, that's great. But like, as we were going through this process, one of the things we really figured out is like, I had a hard time kind of lining up whose payments went with which client and things like that, because sometimes I'll have like a parent pay for a deposit, on a wedding. So like, how would my bookkeeper know? Right? Like, there was like just like a lot of things where I noticed, like, how would she have known what this would have been? Like, I had a hard time. There's tax charged on certain things, and then there's not tax charged on others. Like, it's a whole like different world of things, but once you get it, it's pretty straightforward, right?
And it lets you review your finances if you have any sort of subscriptions you forgot about.
Like we did. I'm not going to note that we paid for a subscription to Amazon in the US for over a year. And we never used it other than when we were there for a month in January.
Backstory, we went to Florida last year in January, and we got Amazon Prime so that we could send some stuff to ourselves. And lo and behold, we forgot about it and didn't really look at our credit card statements all that closely. We're just like, oh, another Amazon charge. We must have just bought more stuff because we were at some point.
Rain.
Yeah, exactly. Making it rain. Wedding season had started, and we were just getting into all the different things and being too busy. And that just goes to show that little things can go by. And like, it was a $250 overall loss on our part because we forgot to turn it off. But those are things that also can really help you, like identity theft or credit card theft or those kind of things. So being more mindful about what is going through your credit card, like what's being spent. And then you could just do reports on like how much I spent on groceries this month. Because that was a big thing for us this year, especially with the economy being the way it is we were trying to cut back personally on groceries. And that's one of the things that we didn't really count. We were just like, we need to get food. We have a family of 5. So that's just how things cost. But really, when you dig down, you can find some savings on subscriptions, on food.
We were able to find quite a bit of savings. I think it was like something like $30,000 we've been able to cut from our budget for this year alone.
Well, again, that's because we were making it rain a little bit with our services. And that's something that maybe if we had done our own taxes for a while, that we would have known maybe we shouldn't have done all those things last year. That I wouldn't say it put us in debt, but it put us in a situation where we could have been better off this year if we had just toned it down or just understood what was happening with our finances, the income. And it was just a crazy year too, because like the cost of doing business ended up going up, with our second shooters, and we had to split up more. And all those factors, again, are sometimes out of your control. If we had just looked at the numbers, we could have just better planned for the future.
And one of the things we do as well as somebody books us is we actually write down in a spreadsheet like their name, their date, who's shooting it, is it photo or video, and like their location. And what we started adding is like our expenses for it. So what was the total that they ended up paying, right? Because sometimes we have like customizations on the packages. Yep. And then we started taking away, okay, well, this is how much we need to put away for tax. This is how much we put for service tax. And then how much our second shooters and things like that were going to cost, and even how much like a babysitter costs, because we have kids, so we have to sort of factor that in. So when we look at like the overall, like how much money are we going to make roughly, we can see that final number and see like, okay, well, now we have an idea. And that's just in a simple spreadsheet. Like it's not even anything complicated, but that has been really helpful for that visual piece of just seeing, okay, well, yeah, we should probably book like a few more weddings or look at doing XYZ or something like that, right?
Yeah, really finding out the profit margin and things, because sure, we'll just use $5,000 as a number. They book us for that. It's 8-hour day, but it involves a second shooter. So right away, you're like, let's say $500 down from that. If you're going to book so many weddings that you need to hire an editor, that's like another $500 out of that. Then you have like the gas, and if there's any parking passes. And then it just kind of keeps going, like babysitter. If we are both going to that wedding, we need to figure that in. And not only the HST, the tax that
The income tax.
Yeah, the income tax that we're going to have to pay on that income afterwards. So that number starts to get pretty small pretty fast.
Yeah.
Even though you think you're making a lot of money.
Like half of it's gone, basically.
Yeah. You don't want to end at the end of the year where you don't have any savings and then all of a sudden you get a big bill from the old tax man. And you're like, oh boy, maybe I should have known that was coming.
But it's almost half. I think we've done the math enough now where it's like it's pretty much half is left. So even though we're charging $5, really we only come away with like half that. And if we put in like the amount of hours that it takes to do all of those things, like not only shooting the wedding, but doing all the editing and all the meetings beforehand and things like that, like it's definitely not a very high hourly wage, but it's what we do. It's because we love it.
You can almost reverse engineer it. And that's one of the ways that is kind of easy to do. If you're like, I want to make 50,000 like profit this year. And then it's like, you pretty much have to book $100,000 worth of weddings.
Right. Like this is just like straight up, I want to make 50,000 in my pocket. That's what it's going to be. Well, then if you buy a new camera, well, then you need to look at making 110,000. Or if you want to go on a trip, well, that's 120,000, right? Like it just kind of goes up from there.
And then quickly you're at 200,000 and you're like, my God.
And where did it go?
Yeah.
And I worked every single weekend.
But that's the beauty of being a business owner as well, is if you're like, hey, I want to go on an extra trip this year, just work harder.
Yeah, just book more stuff.
Yeah.
I hope that this was helpful. We just really wanted to share some of the insights on tax season. Obviously, it's very topical right now because I'm sure you're in the deep end of doing your taxes. And we hope that this gives you some encouragement to make a change this year. Going forward, invest in a program that works for you. Hire a professional to teach you how to do things if you're concerned. And just get into the numbers. And if you're looking for some, insights on like the free spreadsheets that we use, or if you have questions about that stuff, please reach out to us. I know I've said it before, but we're not pros, but we're happy to share what works for us, because I think that that's what we're here to do, is to really help each other. And at the end of the day, this shouldn't be the hardest part of your business. It shouldn't take away any stress of it. If anything, it should make it better. And I hope that that's the message that you get out of this, is that this is really meant to make your life easier, not the other way around. Tax season shouldn't be this like dreadful time.
I think a lot of people are just afraid to get into it and learn it, because if you know more and you can audit what this professional is going to do, because they don't know everything. Like you said, how do they know a certain charge came from a certain thing? Only you really understand your business and what you spent money on. So it's really good to have that basic knowledge. And I wish we had done that earlier in our business, to be able to guide our bookkeeper, or even just save all that money and just did it ourselves. So don't be afraid of it. Get into it. It's worth learning it, and you'll see that your business is going to be better for it.
Yeah, and you're going to be better for it. You're going to feel so much better knowing what you have coming in and what you don't have coming in, right? How much more motivating would it be if it's like, okay, well, we need to make 20 grand this year, and then we just work towards that, right? And then that's it. We didn't need to make anything more.
Or it can even surprise you. You could say, I want to make this much, and you're like, wow, I worked really hard this month and I hit my goals. Like, let's push it and make new goals and work even harder. Or
yeah,
you can figure out how to grow your business that way.
Yeah, there's both ways, right? You could chill, or you could push even harder, right? But that you don't know what you don't know.
As an entrepreneur, do you ever chill?
I mean, you never know. There's
No,
all
we
kinds.
work harder. We work harder. And if you're not working harder, then just work harder.
Thanks for listening. We hope that you got a little bit of insight. That's really what we wanted to share with you, is this big old, I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, let's